My father looked at me like I was already a transaction he had decided not to honor. My name is Claire Morgan, and the worst part is, I didn't react the way I think I was supposed to. No shock, no gasp, just a slow, quiet recognition. Like something in me had been expecting this exact shape of betrayal for years, even if I never admitted it out loud. It happened on a screen I shouldn't have been looking at. 11:17 p.m. Dark room. Television noise in the background. Some game show laughter that felt obscene in its normality. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, but I kept holding the mug anyway, like warmth might still return if I didn't move. Then my phone lit up again. The group chat. The one I wasn't supposed to be in. My father. My mother. Eric. Brittany. A conversation happening without me about a life I was still funding. I shouldn't have read it, but I did. That's the part I keep circling back to. The message wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was almost careless. Once the house is Eric's, this stops being her problem anyway. Her. Not Paige, not daughter, her. I remember my thumb freezing on the screen longer than I expected, not because I didn't understand it, because I did. And something about finally hearing it spoken casually, like financial planning, like weather, made it feel more real than any argument ever could. The chat kept moving, like nothing important had just been exposed. Brittany talking about removing walls. Eric joking that I always come around eventually. My mother reacting with a thumbs up emoji, like approval could replace morality. And I just sat there, reading it again and again, as if repetition could turn it into something less precise. It didn't. It sharpened it. Because betrayal doesn't always feel like surprise. Sometimes it feels like confirmation of something you spent years refusing to name. And that was the problem. I wasn't shocked. I was relieved I finally had language for what had already been happening. For 8 years, I had been the structure holding everything up. The mortgage, the taxes, the repairs nobody budgeted for until they became emergencies, the silent expectation that if something broke, I would absorb it. When my father's truck failed, they called me. When Eric needed time to figure himself out, they called me. When the house was about to fall apart financially, they didn't ask. They informed me. A number, a due date, a problem already assigned. And I paid it, automatically, like breathing. Dependable. That word used to feel like praise. Now, it felt like classification. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was crying. I wasn't. It was worse. I kept trying to rewrite the message in my head into something softer. Misunderstanding, poor wording, emotional exaggeration. Anything that would make it less deliberate. But every version still ended in the same place. They had discussed me like a system that didn't require consent. And somehow the most disturbing part wasn't anger, it was familiarity. The next morning I opened the fireproof box. I hadn't touched it in years, not because I forgot what was inside, because I didn't want to look directly at proof that I had been right while still being treated like I was wrong. The folder was heavy in a way paper shouldn't be. I spread everything across my dining table. Deed, mortgage documents, payment history. My signature repeated across years like evidence of participation in something I was never emotionally included in. Outside, life continued. A lawnmower, a dog barking once, a normal morning that had no idea anything had shifted inside me. Inside, I started reading like I was building a case against a reality my family had already decided was settled. That's when doubt arrived. Not about numbers, about perception. Because repetition does something dangerous. It makes you start questioning your own memory. You're the successful one. You've already been provided for. You don't need this. Provided for. I stared at that phrase longer than anything else. Provided for. As if stability had been gifted to me instead of extracted from me over time in smaller and smaller pieces until I stopped noticing what I was losing. By noon, I called the attorney. He answered on the second ring. There was a pause when I said my name, then recognition. "Oh," he said, "you're the daughter on the mortgage." The daughter, not owner, not stakeholder, a role, not a position. Funny how language can quietly downgrade your entire existence without breaking any laws. I told him everything. The will, the group chat, the assumption that inheritance could overwrite ownership. He didn't interrupt once. That silence mattered more than agreement. When I finished, he spoke carefully. "Paige, a will only distributes what someone legally owns. It doesn't transfer what they don't control." I already knew that, but hearing it from someone outside the family system made something inside me shift. Like a door I didn't realize was locked had finally been checked. "They can't assign away what isn't theirs," he added. I looked at the papers again. Same structure, same signatures, same reality I had been financially carrying while emotionally being excluded from it. After the call, I didn't move. There was no relief, no satisfaction, just a quiet, suspended clarity that didn't feel like victory. It felt like grief, catching up to documentation, because the question wasn't what they had done. It was how long they had all agreed not to see it. The calls started later that week. My mother first, voicemails shifting between tears and accusation like she couldn't decide which version of me would respond correctly. Then Eric, short messages, defensive tone, already trying to compress everything into something simpler than it was. Then more silence, then more calls, and I didn't answer any of them. At first I thought the silence would feel powerful. It didn't. It felt unnatural, like interrupting a reflex that had been rehearsed for years. Because I wasn't just their daughter in practice, I had been their system response. And removing myself didn't feel like choice. It felt like malfunction. My fingers kept moving toward my phone without permission. Old habits don't disappear, they wait. I still tracked their lives in my head. Appointments, bills, upcoming deadlines. Whether they were okay. That was the part I didn't want to admit. Even after everything, my instinct wasn't anger. It was maintenance. Then my father called. Not a message, a call. I almost didn't answer, but I did. His voice sounded different, not weaker, just reduced. Like he had learned how to speak around consequences instead of through them. We talked about small things first. Weather, his garden, a baseball game neither of us had watched. It was almost normal, which made it worse. Then he said carefully, "Your mother says you're upset." Upset. That word again. Like the scale of what had happened could be reduced into inconvenience. "I saw the messages," I said. Silence followed immediately, not confusion, recognition, like he had been waiting for the moment I stopped pretending I hadn't seen it. When he finally spoke, his voice was measured. "You've done well for yourself." There it was. The internal calculation finally spoken aloud. Eric needs support. Paige has stability. Therefore, imbalance justified. I looked out the window while he spoke. A bird moved across the grass without hesitation, completely uninterested in human accounting systems. "I paid for that house for 8 years," I said quietly. Another pause. Then, "You did," he replied. Not acknowledgement, not gratitude, just confirmation of a fact that required no emotional response. Like checking a box, and that was all. No apology, no rupture in understanding. Just the end of a conversation that had been delayed for years. Afterward, I sat at the table again. Same documents, same cold coffee, same silence, but now it felt different. Not empty. Recorded. And for the first time, I admitted something I had avoided naming. This was never just about the house. It was about how long I had mistaken usefulness for belonging, and how quietly a family can accept your labor while refusing your identity. Not Paige, not daughter, just function, just reliability.
just the part of the system they never thought would stop working. A week later, another payment notice arrived. I placed it in a folder, then I closed it, and this time I didn't reopen it immediately. Somewhere I knew they were still waiting for the version of me that fixes things without being asked. But I was starting to understand something I hadn't been taught how to refuse. Being useful was never the same as being seen, and the moment I stopped functioning, they finally had to decide what I actually was.